Tonight, Russia accuses the UK of direct involvement in Ukrainian attacks on its soil and challenges London to prove it wasn't involved. Moscow's ambassador to the UK denied his country had been left humiliated and told me Kyiv's audacious strikes risk escalating the war to the worst-case scenario.
We perfectly know how much London is involved, how deeply British forces are involved in working together with Ukrainian.
In the Oval Office and at NATO headquarters, a concerted effort to push defence spending up to 5% to combat Russian aggression. Andrei Kelin told me Russia posed no threat, but surely a direct accusation puts Britain in Moscow's crosshairs. Our conversation coming up. Also tonight, the bromance is over. A very public and personal spat between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Find out why coming up. We don't want them. The US president announces a new travel ban affecting 12 countries. Tonight, we hear firsthand from communities who will be affected. And I speak to one of Australia's richest men about the real-world impact of trade tariffs and why we need to be careful about using AI in warfare. That's all coming up in The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Good evening. We'll focus on my interview with the Russian ambassador in a moment. But first, I just want to bring you details of a very public spat that's just turned nasty. Donald Trump once described Elon Musk as his first buddy. So why has the billionaire made unsubstantiated claims that the US president appears in files relating to paedophile Jeffrey Epstein? There's been a lot going on in the past hour, and we've approached the White House for comment. Let's just try to start from the beginning. This is what Donald Trump said in the Oval Office this afternoon. Have a listen.
He knew every aspect of this bill. He knew it better than almost anybody. And he never had a problem until right after he left. And if you saw the statements he made about me, which I'm sure you can get very easily, it's very fresh on tape, he said the most beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next. But I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
That was Donald Trump this afternoon. Let's bring in our US correspondent, Mark Stone. I mean, Mark, these statements, these tweets, or, on Truth Social and X, have just been quite something in the last hour or so.
Yeah, this is utterly extraordinary. The wheels have firmly come off this relationship. We've all been wondering when it would happen, but I don't think anyone expected it to spiral quite so quickly. Yeah, let's try and break it down for you. So it was last week on Friday that the two appeared with a very fond farewell, so it seemed, in the Oval Office. Elon Musk had come to the end of his 130 days serving in the White House, and he was saying goodbye. It all looked pretty good. But as soon as he left office, he started to complain about Donald Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill. This is a spending bill that Donald Trump is trying to push through Congress. It would, says Elon Musk, raise the government and the country's debt massively. And so he started spouting off about that bill on social media. The first opportunity we got to question Donald Trump on his views of what his old pal Elon Musk was now saying about his spending bill was today when Trump was in the Oval Office with the German Chancellor. You heard there what Trump said about Elon Musk. To which Elon Musk first replied online on Twitter, of course. He said, whatever, keep the EV solar incentive cuts in the bill, even though no oil and gas subsidies are touched. And then he says, even in the entire history of civilization, there's never been legislation that's both big and beautiful. Everyone knows it. Then the wheels began to come off because Musk carried on by saying, without me, Trump would have lost the election. Dems would control the House and the Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate. So it was looking like the wheels were coming off. Such ingratitude, so said Elon Musk. Trump then replied with something that Musk clearly took as quite incendiary. Trump said the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden did not do it. And then Musk, first of all, put something on X, effectively musing over whether it was time to start a new political party that represents the 80% in the middle. And then the kicker, that extraordinary allegation from Elon Musk, where he says, time to drop the really big bomb. Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT. Now, Sky News has approached the White House for comment. I imagine pretty much every other news organization in the world will have done the same. As I speak, there is no response from the White House yet. Jeffrey Epstein, of course, died in prison in 2019. He was serving time for sexual assault and the trafficking of minors. We know that Donald Trump and Elon Musk knew each other. They were socially acquainted in the 1990s, in the 2000s as well, as indeed many people were with Jeffrey Epstein. He was a socialite in New York for many, many years. But, I mean, this is extraordinary. You may ask, Yalda, why does it matter? Well, we have the America's most consequential president now up against the world's richest man. These two people working together hold massive, massive political and financial clout, and we have seen how that political and financial clout married has upended American politics through the election campaign into this second term. But working separately, working apart, working against each other, it could be equally consequential. We await with, some amazement to see how Donald Trump responds to these extraordinary allegations that Elon Musk is now making.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine Donald Trump won't be responding. He doesn't like to be personally attacked in this way. Mark, thank you so much. Now, Ukraine's recent attacks deep inside Russian territory were as brazen as they were meticulous. Vladimir Putin has made clear he'll take his revenge. And tonight, it seems Britain is firmly in Moscow's sights. This drone attack in remote Siberia reportedly destroyed a third of Russia's elite bomber aircraft. Today, Russia's ambassador to the UK admitted it was a surprise. And after a bridge exploded in Crimea, Andriy Kelin has challenged the UK government to prove they had no involvement.
Our support for Ukraine is unwavering. I know that as someone that represents the heart and home to the Royal Navy that's working with the Ukrainian Navy.
That's all ministers here are saying on the matter, as you'd expect, but there will be some nerves, plus maybe an increased awareness of the need to boost defence spending. NATO now wants it to be 5% of GDP. The US Defence Secretary says that's the least member states can do. Have a listen.
The issue is not whether America will step up. We've stepped up. We're leading the way. The question is, will our allies step up?
That was Pete Hegseth speaking to our Europe correspondent in Brussels today. But the Russian ambassador told me there's no need to fear his country, that there's no need for Europe to spend extra money on what he calls toys. Yeah, right, you might think. Well, we'll decipher his comments with our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, in a moment. But first, just have a listen to my conversation with the Russian ambassador to the UK.
We were mostly surprised because there are several attacks that has been done by Ukrainians on our territory on the eve of the new round of discussion in Istanbul. There was a seriously bomb attack against railway infrastructure, which resulted in many civilian casualties, unfortunately, which shows that it was a pure terroristic act, since it has been designed against civilians, against train, against bridges. So 3 attacks and 1 more this morning. It is a very serious escalation. That is why President Putin called yesterday to President Trump, and they discussed it, the necessity. And our hope that we will get a reaction from London as well. Because I will tell you, such kind of attack involves, of course, provision of very high technology, so-called geospace data, which only can be done by those who has it in possession. And this is London and Washington.
So you're pointing the finger of blame on the Americans and...
I don't believe that Americans, that has been denied by President Trump, definitely, but it has not been denied by London.
The Ukrainians say that they didn't tell their allies about it. This is purely a Ukrainian operation.
We perfectly know how much London is involved, how deeply British forces are involved in working together with Ukrainian in targeting Crimean Bridge, for instance, targeting other issues, provision of satellite information, not only, but also data that is needed to launch missiles, flight data, so-called. That is why we, of course, expect a certain reaction from London.
Let's just break some of this down, because you have described this, Moscow has described this as a terrorist act. But this is in the middle of a war, and these are air bases. This is fair game because there's a military infrastructure, and this is part of warfare. Unlike Russia, which in the last few weeks has targeted multiple civilian infrastructure and left dozens of civilians dead in Ukraine, to the point where President Trump has said, has Vladimir Putin gone crazy?
We are targeting only military infrastructure. Sometimes it is causing, there is a collateral damage, and we do not deny it, of course, it happens.
We've seen schools, hospitals targeted. Just in the last few weeks, civilian infrastructure was targeted.
Some hotels has been targeted because there were meetings of senior officials of Ukraine over the year, and you know that it has been done, and we did have good information, we have done it. What happened about the aircrafts, although, as I will repeat, damage is limited, but this is a major escalation. It brings escalation to another level, and here we have to attract attention of President Trump to it. That is why our president called to him. He understands what it is, strategic stability, how important it is in a relationship between nuclear states. UK is a nuclear state.
Is this a threat to the UK?
Where do you see the threat?
Well,
in my words, where do you see a threat?
When you say that,
UK is always see a threat everywhere.
How will you respond to this attack? Because President Putin said there will be a response.
Yes, he said this also to President Trump, but it is up to the Ministry of Defense to decide when and how it is going to happen.
Is everything on the table, including nuclear attack?
No, I don't think so. Nuclear attack this is not a type of a conflict which is presupposed a kind of a nuclear attack, but we have different means. And it is not up to me. I have no idea. It is up to the Ministry of Defense.
You describe what happened at the weekend as a serious escalation, and then on the other hand, you say Ukraine is losing this war. Do you and does Moscow view what happened at the weekend as a humiliation?
No. Well, there are some people who are saying that, of course, there should be more precautions taken on about the airfields, and that is correct.
I just want to quote to you the Conflict Observatory, part of Yale University's Humanitarian Research Lab. They verified that at least 19,500 children were forcibly deported from occupied areas of Ukraine. They were funneled into re-education camps or adopted by Russian families. Why have you taken these children?
I have no idea which source it is, but we have got an official list from Ukrainian delegation in Istanbul, and it has 339 names.
Why were these children taken to begin with?
Because they were on the fire line, on the line of fire, close to the fighting people. These were homeless children, mostly it is care homes in which children these were, and they were just taken by our militaries to a safer place, that is all.
That's the point you're making, that this is further escalating things by Ukraine defending itself.
Yes, actions like that, they are bringing the conflict to a different level of escalation.
Which would mean what?
Which would mean better not to, and better to realize and to remember what we're doing. We have a limited conflict right now, which, of course, has a wider projection on the European security. But limited conflict should stay a limited conflict, and not to escalate it, not to try to engulf World War III. That's the worst case scenario that we can imagine.
Western intelligence agencies don't believe that Russia would use its nuclear capabilities, or it doesn't look like you've deployed in any way to retaliate. Is that correct at this stage?
You ask me
Yes.
what Western,
No,
what Western agencies think.
that's their assessment. Is that Russia's position?
The position on the military things can be elaborated only by the general staff, and I am not part of it at all. But until now, we are always saying that it's not a type of a conflict where we are going to use this as neither it is in our military doctrine.
So that option is on the table?
Which one?
The nuclear one?
I don't think so, no.
I want to ask you about this push for NATO defence spending to be put up to 5% is based on the defence review here in this country. They're also obviously trying to meet those targets because one of the major threats they see is from Russia.
Yeah, it is fantastic, and I like it. It is. Your Minister of Defense has said that they have daily threat from Russia in the sea, in the air, and on the earth. I very much would like to see these threats. What does he mean? Does he mean that he also said, your Prime Minister, that the level of life of working people has downgraded because of threat from Russia? What does he mean? Is it a safe passage through La Manche or English Channel or by our ships is diminishing a level of life here in Britain, or something else? This story is as old as the world. When the government is not capable to deal with internal economics and cannot provide for its population the normal conditions of life, then it is trying to find an outside threat and to concentrate on saying, let's point this outside threat. This is damaging our life. It is, so that's...
Should Western capitals not be preparing themselves, not be upping their defence spending when Russia is saying, if you continue in this way, this will escalate?
So if Europeans decide to spend money for military, as I say, toys or equipment, it is up to them to do it. You shouldn't ask us on it. But as we stated many times, and in our statement of the embassy, we do not represent any threat to Britain at all, neither on the sea, nor in the air, nor on the earth.
Ambassador, thank you so much for your time.
Okay, good. Thank you.
That was the Russian ambassador to the UK. Well, our international affairs editor, Dominic Weichhorn, was listening, and he joins me now. Dom, I just want to know what your key takeaways from that interview was and why you think he pointed the finger of blame on the United Kingdom and especially said, look, we don't think Washington is involved, but we do think Britain was.
Yeah, well, I think he's pointed the finger of blame because, Vladimir Putin is fighting now effectively a forever war as far as we can make out, because he needs this war to continue because, he in a state of constant sort of martial activity, he seems to think that his grip on power is secured. And so to make this war continue, as long as he wants it to, he's looking for villains, and obviously Britain is an arch-villain. And I think, as the ambassador in London, he's going to make a lot of Britain's role. And obviously, at the moment, the Russians are not trying to antagonise the Americans. So, he's diplomatically not casting blame on the Americans. I guess the question is how much we should worry about what he's saying. He's pointing the finger of blame. He's saying there will be a price to pay for the attacks on the air bases, which were humiliating, as you said, were hugely embarrassing and a masterstroke of strategic sort of subterfuge carried out by the Ukrainians. And he's saying Britain will have to pay a price. But what's curious about this interview, I think, is a couple of things. One is the tone. It was kind of jokey. He seemed a bit all over the place, to be honest, Yalda. He seemed to be giggling a bit. On the one hand, he was saying that there was the risk of World War III. On the other hand, he's saying that we shouldn't make too much of the threat of the nuclear threat. He was downplaying that. And I think it's, if we are watching Russian diplomats clearly very closely following this call that Vladimir Putin had with Donald Trump yesterday, where he made it pretty clear that there will be a price to pay, something that Donald Trump has now twice kind of echoed for him, almost acting like a kind of Kremlin spokesperson rather than the leader of the free world, telling the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz today that it won't be pretty what Putin does in response. So in the light of that, we're watching these kind of interviews closely to see if there's any hint as to what the Russians might do. But, there was no real sense of menace, was there, from what he was saying? I don't think if you're in Whitehall today, you'll be desperately worried about this blame he's pointing at Britain. And it hasn't given us much to kind of guess at in terms of what the Russians do next in response to this extraordinary attack the Ukrainians carried out.
So, Dom, taking all of that into consideration, including where we are with potential ceasefire talks and this conversation between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, what do you think is likely to happen now?
Well, I think we're moving away from where we were a few weeks ago when I was in Kyiv and where the direction of travel seemed to be towards some kind of talks and possibly a ceasefire. We had that sort of joint effort by the British, the Germans, the French and the Poles alongside Zelensky calling for a ceasefire. Now, that was kind of made a lot harder by what Putin did and then what Trump did, almost supporting Putin. But there was a diplomatic kind of momentum there. Now, I think in the light of what the Ukrainians have done, that's very much going in the other direction. And I think we're going to see some kind of retaliatory action by the Russians that will continue that direction away from diplomatic progress. But, I think, for the Ukrainians, it's a difficult tightrope they're walking. On the one hand, they've got to give the Americans the impression they're still aiming towards negotiated settlement, towards a ceasefire, because they need to keep Donald Trump on side. On the other hand, they've got to push back against this narrative that Donald Trump and others have been putting out there, that the Ukrainians have no cards to play, that they are staring defeat in the face, and that they can't win this war. What they did against this airbase is very much goes in the other direction. It makes it very clear they do have cards to play. Actually, they could win this war with enough support from the European allies, particularly from the Europeans, and they've got to keep the Europeans believing in that possibility. But the big danger still, and I don't think the sort of overall picture has changed in a way over the last few weeks, is the danger is that Donald Trump still walks away from this. And he said, interestingly again today to the German Chancellor, that he had said to Putin yesterday that these two sides are like children fighting and sometimes you just have to leave them to it. So he's still kept that jeopardy there. And if he does walk away from this and he stops trying to mediate peace between the two sides, the fear, very much in London and France and Berlin as well, is that he will take military support but also military intelligence away from the Ukrainians, which will then leave them in a very difficult position and give the Europeans a huge amount to think about in terms of what they can do to fill that vacuum instead.
Indeed. Dom, thank you so much for all of your analysis there. You're watching The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Still to come on the programme, Donald Trump imposes a travel ban on 12 nationalities in a bid to protect the US against foreign terrorists. But why now?
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation futures.
This is an actual crime. They don't care for that. Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away.
So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back to the programme. You're looking at live shots of an event that President Donald Trump is currently attending in Washington. And of course, we have been reporting on this row that's developed in the last couple of hours between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, where both have put out a series of statements, and Elon Musk escalated the tensions between the two when in the last hour or so he made unsubstantiated claims on X linking Donald Trump to the Jeffrey Epstein files. So we haven't heard Donald Trump react or respond to that statement made by Elon Musk. But if we do hear him say anything at this event, we will be bringing that to you live.
And all the problems that it has done for quality of life, it's done for safety within our...
Now, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has revealed claims of clans of Palestinians in Gaza have been activated to help fight against Hamas. Family militias have sometimes wielded control over localised areas of the Strip, and aid workers have also accused them of stealing supplies from aid trucks. Here's what Benjamin Netanyahu had to say this evening.
On the advice of security officials, we have activated clans in Gaza that oppose Hamas. What's wrong with this? This is only good and saves the lives of IDF soldiers. The publication of this only benefits Hamas, but Lieberman doesn't care.
That was Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, US President Donald Trump has signed an order imposing a travel ban on people from 12 countries in a bid to prevent what he called major foreign terror attacks on American soil. Now, you may remember these images from 2017 after a similar ban was imposed. Most banned nationalities were from a Muslim background, resulting in strong criticism and leading to large protests across the United States. Well, this latest decision comes after 12 people were injured in an attack in Colorado this weekend. Nationals from countries like Afghanistan, Iran and Yemen will be banned from travelling to the US from next Monday. These additional 7 countries will be affected by a partial ban. Syria and Egypt are notably exempt after Mr. Trump's recent trip to the Middle East. Also exempt are diplomats travelling on valid non-immigration visas and their immediate family members. Athletes competing in the 2026 World Cup and 2028 Olympics, and some dual nationals also make that list. Sky's David Blevins has been hearing from communities who will be affected.
In the melting pot that is America, travel bans are highly contentious. This coffee shop in Virginia employs people from countries on the list. The owner herself from Yemen.
I see firsthand the struggles like my employees go through. And they're very hardworking people. Actually, the most hardest working people that I have here are from Afghanistan. So them coming here, they're adding value to this economy. They're not coming here and causing trouble or anything.
It's devastating for Afghan migrants like Atifa, who fears she won't be granted asylum now.
If I go back to Afghanistan, the Taliban kill us, or my children don't like to back to Afghanistan, especially my girl.
So
They
this is
attacked
not
me.
just a matter of education for your daughter, it's a matter of life and death.
Matter of life for me, yeah. For me and for my husband, for my children, for all of us.
The so-called Muslim ban in 2017 triggered airport protests and legal disputes.
So I just want to thank you very much for being here.
But the president, who's been meeting with the German chancellor, says he won't let what happened in Europe happen in America.
And why now? I can say that it can't come soon enough, frankly. We want to keep bad people out of our country. The Biden administration allowed some horrendous people, and we're getting them out.
He says last weekend's firebomb attack in Colorado justifies new restrictions. 12 people were injured at a march in support of Israeli hostages in Gaza. But back at the coffee shop in Virginia, a customer who fought in Vietnam says President Trump's actions won't make America safer.
I'm a firm believer in allowing immigration, and I think it's terrible that we're deporting people that really have never done anything wrong. They just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they get picked up by ICE and off they go.
Most people who work in this cafe send money to relatives back in their home country. So it's not just those who were hoping to come to America who will be impacted by this ban. It's extended families who rely on that support. It used to be the land of opportunity, but for millions, the American dream has hit the wall. David Blevins, Sky News in Virginia.
Well, let's get more now on this with Sean Van Diver, the founder and president of Afghan Evac, which was set up back in 2021 during the US withdrawal from Afghanistan. Sean, it's really good to see you. I just want to understand this from your perspective, because no doubt this is quite confusing. We know that Afghanistan is on the list, but there are some exemptions. Just talk about this executive order and how it impacts some of those Afghan allies who, you know, have been able to come to the United States and some who are still trying to get to the United States, who were part of, you know, those who assisted US allies in Afghanistan.
Sure. Thanks for having me on again, Yalda. It's nice to be here. I wish it were under different circumstances. It is unequivocally good that this executive order includes an exemption for Afghan special immigrant visa holders and their immediate families. That said, the headline is just smoke. The fire is that even though people can come here, the State Department, Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, Stephen Miller, they've been dismantling the very infrastructure that helps get those SIVs, other refugees here through what was called Operation Enduring Welcome, our safest, most secure legal immigration program in our country's history, built by Afghan Evac, other groups, and the Biden administration to ensure that people are arriving here with a durable plan. A durable status so that they wouldn't be kicked out. It was the most secure, safe immigration program in our country's history.
So, Sean, this leaves many people in limbo. I mean, you've helped bring thousands of Afghans and others into the country, and there are those who are still waiting to arrive. It really leaves their lives in total chaos, confusion and limbo.
It does. And look, this executive order is confusing. It creates a false sense of reassurance because of that exemption. But at the same time, the administration is eliminating the people and programs who make those exemptions functional, right? You can't claim to support SIVs and Afghans while simultaneously eliminating the staff responsible for processing and moving them, and while leaving thousands of active duty U.S. military family members languishing around the world, in addition to the 250,000 other Afghans that need to come here that we promised could have their shot at the American dream. So Afghan Evac is not going to quit this fight. We're going to continue going. If you want to support it, you can go to afghanevac.org/donate. Make sure we're able to stay in the fight, raising the voices of these vulnerable people who are afraid to raise their own voices right now because this administration has proven quite punitive. So look, there is a lot of noise about this executive order. It is heartbreaking to see it happen again. And I know that I can't even imagine what it must feel like to be from any of these countries, let alone Afghanistan, around the world, and be facing the fear of being either sent back or being unable to get to the freedom represented by the United States of America.
Sean, you've been fearing this for some time. You've been lobbying this administration to try and overturn some of these bans that they'd already put in place. What are they telling you?
I mean, that's the thing, right? And actually, we'll break some news here. The administration didn't even give the State Department a heads up that this was coming. They don't have implementation guidance on this yet. Nobody knows which pathways are actually impacted, other than the high level, or consular affairs staff was not given a heads up. The lawyers are still working out how they're going to implement this. So it's just more, they're not telling us anything. They're not telling their own staff anything. And in fact, they're degrading the promise of America globally, even as they're puffing up their chests. And, Secretary Noem ended temporary protected status, saying that it was perfectly safe to go back to Afghanistan just a couple weeks ago, at the same time as the State Department has a level 4 travel advisory, and they're issuing this ban that says, oh, it's not safe to go to Afghanistan. It's so unsafe there that we can't bring people back. The things that they're doing are intellectually dishonest, and they're not tricking the American people. It's a shame, and we need everybody to stand up, make their voices heard, and ensure that this isn't the last word.
Sean, we're grateful for you for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Yalda. I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. You're watching The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Still to come on the programme, Chinese and US leaders agree to meet and talk, but can they agree on a trade deal? I've asked one of Australia's most prominent businessmen. Find out what he said next.
show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
Welcome back to the programme. I just want to update you on the spat between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. The billionaire made unsubstantiated claims that the US president appears in files relating to paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Now, Sky News has approached the White House for comment. And in the past few minutes, Mr. Musk has been tweeting again, saying that Donald Trump's tariffs will cause a recession in the second half of this year. Well, we're following this story very closely. And as soon as we hear more from President Trump, because we are waiting for him to respond to these claims made by Elon Musk, we will be bringing that to you. Donald Trump is currently at an event in Washington, D.C. China and the United States appear to have extended their first real olive branch today amid their ongoing trade war. Presidents Trump and Xi spoke on the phone this afternoon and offered to host each other. On the agenda, talks of a trade deal. Now, taking to his Truth Social, President Trump described his hour-and-a-half-long call with President Xi Jinping as very good. They spoke the day after the White House imposed 50% tariffs on steel and aluminium imports. Well, I've been speaking to the billionaire philanthropist Andrew Forrest. He's the founder of Fortescue, a global metal mining company headquartered in Australia, and he knows a lot about doing business in the US and China. We spoke about climate change and AI on the battlefield, but first, have a listen to his take on how Beijing is responding in the trade war.
The real reaction from the Chinese is non-reaction. It's a mindful, steady, stay the course. They are going to go green. It has a terrific impact on the balance of payments. They're a massive fuel importer, so if they stop importing fuel, it's great for the world, it's great for every Chinese citizen. But it also, for us, leads the way on the mass production of equipment which the world needs to stop burning fossil fuel, because that country's leading it.
So when you say they're not reacting, at this point, are they sort of just exploring the options that we're seeing played out in terms of, slapping America back with equal tariffs?
I think there's a deeper response always, like in Australia, when tariffs got put on us, we thought, well, is that really the behaviour of a true ally? That's how the knockabout Australian mum and dad would think, right? In China, it goes deeper than that. They think, OK, North America, for some reason, wants to hurt us. I've always found, Yalda, in my life, that if you treat someone like an enemy long enough, they're eventually going to become an enemy. So I think the Chinese are pretty determined not to be an enemy. They are determined to lift the standard of living of their people, to lift their economy. And I just issue a small warning here. Both America, China, Australia, Britain, all of us, we've got really inventive, hard-working people. But if you take one side of your platform away, like you say, drill, baby, drill, and you start to push down on green energy investments, you start to push down on green energy technology, then you're leaving the playing field wide open, undefended, to your opposition.
And yet that idea of, as you say, being environmentally conscious, aware, building businesses that are more green, which is what you have done, is now seen as some kind of dirty word because of concern around how the Trump administration would react. When once, people and companies businesses were accused of greenwashing, it's now something that they're literally trying to move away from.
Washington, D.C. is a powerful force. Yes, the White House is a powerful force. But leaders come and go, right? The climate and the acceleration in heat around the world, particularly in the marine environment, is not stopping. It doesn't care what headlines come out of DC. It's just marching ahead dangerously. I really want to say to everyone in heavy industry, everyone in business, you are just trying to breathe below the waterline if you think you can exist on fossil fuel and not be held accountable in the future, particularly for your lack of shareholder returns, when in industry, those other companies marched ahead in these times and they stole the prize and you didn't. And by that I simply say going green as quickly as you possibly can has very serious upside.
And would you then say, you know, maybe write it out for the next 3.5 years and see what happens in America beyond that, or just leave America behind, you know, and look to other places, perhaps Europe or in China?
Well, look, it is kind of both. I mean, as a global investor, I'm going to go where I feel the love, where I'm welcomed in, I'm feeling the love, you know, please come in, we want your technology, your expertise, your employment, your investment. If I don't feel that in North America, even though I've got projects throughout North America, if I don't feel that, if I feel that I'm facing into a hostile political system for whatever reason, you know, I might think that's barking mad because I'm facing into what's best for organic life, by the way, which humans are part of. If I'm actually doing everything I can for organic life and yet the administration's saying, we don't want you, fine by me, baby, I'm out of there, you know, and I'll go invest in other countries. But I think it's further than that. I think we risk losing a massive technology advantage by just leaving the playing field, North America leaving the playing field and leaving it to the Aussies, the Japanese, the Chinese, the Europeans, which is, of course, what I see happening.
And yet the Trump administration has put this rivalry with China at the forefront of its policies right now. They see China as a formidable enemy, and whether that comes down to AI technology, cyber warfare, you know, they firmly have their eyes set on this rivalry escalating. And they also expect allies like Australia to stand with them if we do see tensions in the Indo-Pacific, for example, rise up. What's your take on that?
To take a rising power as necessarily an enemy, that's a problem. You know, a rising power is a rising power. If the rising power becomes arrogant and stupid, starts shooting missiles at other countries, then fine. That's what you've seen with Russia. That was a rising power too. It's decimating the belief the world has in Russia because Russia's acted like the village idiot. Now, China's not acting like the village idiot. Sure, it's just saying to Taiwan, listen, this is very embarrassing for us, but if you don't embarrass us anymore, everyone's going to be happy. But, you know, that is China, just a peaceful China. Trying to create an economic competitor into a military enemy is a big problem for the world. And if you think you're getting votes for it by scaremongering people into, oh my God, worry about China, can I tell you, it's going to last for a while, but not long.
I want to ask you about AI because you've worked to try and find ways and methods in which AI can do good for the world, whether that's in business or health or, you know, in other sectors.
That's research, everything. Right now we stand on the precipice of being pushed into war, nuclear winter by AI, because it'll make mistakes like it's doing all the time. Now, we feel that unless there's a human in the command chain, then we lose our most critical element of human nature, and that's empathy. And you're seeing this in Gaza, where we're crap in, crap out with AIs, identifying people and killing them. And, you know, how do you know if they're actual terrorists? You took a really average information feed from AI, through AI, and the AI eliminated that person. That is shocking to me. Just getting the lexicon right in how we program our AI, how we identify our weapons is critical, how we identify threats. What is a threat? Let's describe it together so we don't make errors, because AI is extremely sensitive to errors, and it will command attacks without a human in a blink of an eye and start a reactionary war, because the AI on the other side will see the attack and respond to it. And the whole time, if there's not a human in the middle, then that process becomes unstoppable.
Are you worried despite these conversations that you've also been a part of between China and the United States, are you worried about where things are going and the direction it's heading, or are you comforted by the fact that that relationship has remained firm despite whatever administration has come in?
I'm certainly deeply relieved that we've had this dialogue rolling now for nearly 6-7 years. It's already achieved president-to-president agreement that a human only can make a nuclear attack decision.
Andrew, really great to talk to you. Thank you so much. That was Andrew Forrest there. Now, there has been huge controversy and mystery surrounding the killing of Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. She was shot dead 3 years ago in the West Bank while covering an Israeli raid at the Jenin refugee camp. Israel has always claimed Shireen had not been specifically targeted, but a new US-made documentary suggests otherwise. Who Killed Shireen has identified who it believes to be the man responsible for killing the journalist.
From the moment Shireen was killed, I said and continued to say and will continue to say that this bullet was meant to prevent the Palestinian media from the documentation and exposure of the occupation's crimes.
For more on this, I'm joined now by Diane Nissenbaum, the executive producer of Who Killed Shireen. Diane, thank you so much for joining us here on the programme. Shireen was this extraordinary, brave journalist, and you really wanted to know who killed her, what happened that day, alongside a handful of other journalists, and you went out to investigate. Just tell us a little bit more about what you found.
Right. There was incredible mystery around the identity of the Israeli soldier that killed her. Israel did everything it could to conceal the identity of this soldier from the U.S. government. She was an American citizen. She was the first Palestinian-American journalist to be shot dead by Israeli forces. And when you're a journalist and you see a mystery like this, you want to know, why are they working so hard to hide the identity of this soldier? And the U.S. government officials told us that the only way they could determine if there was a war crime here, a human rights violation, was by talking to this soldier and finding out what he was thinking when he fired those shots. So we set out to find out what the U.S. government never did, and we did. We tracked down the Israeli soldier, identified him as a 20-year-old Israeli soldier on his first deployment in the West Bank, who himself was actually killed in Jenin by Palestinians. We also uncovered evidence that the initial U.S. investigation concluded that that soldier intentionally shot her and should have been able to see that she was wearing the blue press flak jacket, which she herself have worn in many conflict zones, and that he should have been able to tell that she was a journalist, and that conclusion was essentially overruled by Biden administration officials, who went on to declare that she was unintentionally targeted. So we discovered sort of a concerning pattern of cover-ups and obfuscations, both by the Israelis, who did all they could to hide the identity of the soldier, and by the U.S. government in trying to obscure Israel's responsibility for her killing.
Yeah, Diane, tell us a little bit more about this cover-up by the Biden administration. Did you approach them and put this to them about why they didn't do more, especially when they knew?
Well, you know, the U.S. government, top U.S. officials that I talked to were essentially misinformed about what happened to Shireen. It's one of these things that really bothered us in the film, is that top U.S. officials would tell me that she was in the middle of this crossfire and that she was accidentally shot. And the Israeli military itself concluded that she was not caught in crossfire, that she was intentionally targeted. And we do talk to a U.S. government official who was directly involved in this, who told us that it was his belief that top Biden administration officials didn't want the killing of Shireen, the killing of an American journalist, to disturb broader Israel-U.S. relations. They had bigger issues, and her death was not important enough for the Biden administration.
Diane, could this particular soldier have been tried in an American court?
That's an interesting question. He could probably not have been tried in court. The U.S. official that we spoke to did say that it was his belief that this soldier would and could have been convicted of manslaughter, at least, if he was put in this situation. But he certainly could have been tried in international court, accused of a human rights violation. That could have led to a cutoff of U.S. aid to this elite Israeli unit, Duvdevan, that was responsible. So there were other steps the U.S. could have taken to hold Israel to account for her death.
Dan, I have about 30 seconds left, but I just wonder, will justice ever be served?
Unfortunately, it does not seem like justice will be served. We do see Shireen's killing as an inflection point in Israel's relations with the media. As you know, more than 200 Palestinian journalists have been killed by Israel since October 7th. Israel is now considered the most dangerous country in the world for journalists. 3 more journalists were killed today in Gaza. So we are hoping that Israel itself will reflect on her killing and maybe take actions to do more to protect journalists.
Diane, thank you so much for joining us and for this extraordinary documentary, Who Killed Shireen?
Thank you.
Well, before we go, let's just bring you up to date on that spat between President Donald Trump and Elon Musk. We've been discussing it throughout the programme. Extraordinary developments in the last couple of hours where we've seen a series of tweets put out on X and Truth Social, where Elon Musk made those unsubstantiated claims against Donald Trump, linking him to the Jeffrey Epstein files. We're still waiting for Donald Trump to respond to that. And as soon as it happens, we will bring that to you on Sky News. But for now, good night. The news at 10 is next.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
A show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
It is 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Elon Musk claims President Trump appears in the Epstein files as a full-blown public row between the two former friends erupts. Sky News has approached the White House for a response to the allegation blowing up Washington's biggest bromance. Also tonight, Russia's ambassador tells Sky News that the UK is directly involved in Ukrainian strikes against his country.
I don't believe that Americans, that has been denied by President Trump, definitely, but it has not been denied by London.
Plus, Zia Youssef resigns as chairman of Reform UK, saying it's no longer a good use of his time. 2 teenagers are sentenced over the manslaughter of an 80-year-old man near Leicester. Police in Portugal end their renewed search for Madeleine McCann after 3 days. And we will take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from tonight, 10:30 right through until midnight. Well, good evening. Elon Musk has claimed that Donald Trump appears in files relating to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein as an extraordinary row between the US president and the world's richest man erupted tonight. Mr. Musk gave no evidence for his claim. Sky News has approached the White House for comment. Well, the allegation is the most serious salvo in an increasingly acrimonious public spat between the two former friends this evening. It began when Mr. Trump said he was disappointed in Mr. Musk's recent criticism of his signature tax bill. Our US correspondent Mark Stone reports now on the very bitter end of what was Washington's biggest bromance.
Is the only reason we can now send American astronauts into space.
We have all wondered when these two would fall out, but could anyone have predicted that when it did happen, it would spiral so fast? With one tweet, a truly imploding relationship after an extraordinary escalation in the space of just a day. Time to drop the real bomb, Musk wrote.